Somewhere in our lineage, there was a woman who knew. She knew how to sit with another woman's grief without trying to fix it. And she knew the songs that were sung over a new mother in the days after she gave birth. She knew the prayers, the herbs, the hand on the shoulder, the circle that gathered when a girl was hurting, and the naming that said, "You belong to us, you're not alone." She knew the gesture of welcome, and somewhere between her life and ours, through migration or survival, or the world speeding up, or the silence that got passed down instead of the songs, that knowing went quiet. This morning, I want to share about what she knew, what we've lost, and what we get to remember. I'm talking about the women who came before us. They endured a great deal, but they also found ways to release what burdened them, and they did it frequently. For example, they didn't sit alone with their grief for months at a time the way we do today. They had the ritual where the body could finally move with the intention of releasing what was stuck inside. And they had a gathering of women who came to celebrate, for example, the birth of a baby. They sung songs while they worked, and the ordinary rhythm of being together that turned daily life into a kind of medicine without anyone needing to call it that. I think about my grandmother braiding my hair when I was a young girl. I would sit between her knees, and for as long as the braiding took place, I was held by her hands on my head, her time given to me without distraction, her presence behind me. All of it was infrastructure. It was care woven into the ordinary. I think about the boarding school I attended, where us girls washed our clothes together outside and hung them out to dry. It would have been a real chore, but it ended up being something else. We talked, we laughed, and shared stories while our hands were working, washing our clothes. The task itself was nothing, but being together was everything. We were processing our lives without even realizing that was what we were doing, because the rhythm of the work made space for the rhythm of our voices. This is what I feel we've lost. Not the wisdom itself, but the conditions that allowed the wisdom to live. The women before us did not schedule their healing. They did not block out an hour on a Tuesday, for example, to feel their feelings. They felt their feelings while their hands were busy and the other women were near. The release was built into the day. The women in our lineages were not only carrying their burdens, they were resourceful inside them. They had structure, they had each other, and they had frequency. When we begin our journey in healing any challenges, it can be tempting to look back at the women who raised us and feel anger. Why didn't she hold me? Why didn't she let me cry? Why was she so hard? Why didn't she protect what needed protecting? And I'd like to offer something gentle here. She could only be as she was conditioned to be. The lens we are looking through, the lens of today, 2026, and of therapy and of the language today for emotions and permission to slow down, is a lens she never had. Our individual lens is filtered through what we have lived and experienced, and hers was filtered through what she had to survive and endure. We cannot hold the women before us to standards that didn't exist for them. Most of them were doing the very best they could inside conditions we will never fully understand. And they were resilient women in the world that did not give them tools we now have. With one distinction that I want to make because it's important. There's a difference between a woman who didn't know how to hold her daughter's tears because no one held hers, and a parent who knowingly harms a child or harmed a child. The first asks for compassion and for the breaking of the cycle. The second is a separate truth, and that truth deserves its own honoring. If you were knowingly harmed, this is not asking you to absolve anyone. It's asking you instead to claim back the lineage, the older, wider knowing that exists beneath and beyond the specific person who hurt you. Your grandmother's grandmother had wisdom, and you are not severed from them just because someone in between broke the chain. Here's a reframe I'd like to leave you with. We're not learning something new when we sit down and try to be with the younger parts of ourselves. And we're not importing a Western only based therapeutic technique. We're remembering something that was always ours, something that got thinned not by our grandmothers, but by the larger forces that pressed on them, which include modernity, migration, the speed of life, the loss of the village, and the survival mode that didn't let any of them slow down enough to keep the practices alive. The wisdom didn't fail. The conditions for carrying it forward disappeared, although they are still practiced in many places, but on a small scale. So we need to start rebuilding the conditions, the circles, the frequency, and the release that isn't scheduled, but woven back into how we live. We need to rebuild the communal ways of being with grief, with joy, with anger, with longing. We're not going backwards. We're remembering forward while also utilizing the new techniques in healing in unison with our own innate wisdom that has been given to us through our lineage. I'll also be talking about my Phoenix Rising Women's Circle with you soon. Wherever you are in the world this morning, whatever your grandmothers were given and not given, whatever they passed down and what they couldn't, may you begin to feel their presence behind you, not as judges, not as wounds, but as the women whose resilience seeded everything that came after. They are the women who endured so that one day someone in the line, maybe our mothers or maybe ourselves, would have the conditions to begin breaking what they could not. The endurance is the unseen motivation behind every cycle being broken today. You're not severed from them. You are the one they were holding the door open for. And we are doing this finally together. If this is the kind of work that wants to live in your life, please subscribe so the next video in this chapter finds you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I can't wait to read them. I am so happy you're here. Have a glorious day. From my heart to yours. Bye for now.